Hello and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. For today's preview, as Argentina look to do a historic double over New Zealand in New Zealand on the back of a pretty impressive, in fact, a pretty tremendous performance last weekend, which saw Argentina very much outclass the All Blacks. Ian Foster, Sam Cane, and their men will be desperate to try and bounce back and to try and keep their rugby championship hopes alive. But if we look at the two teams, quite a few changes for Argentina, not too many changes for a struggling All Black side. Please do smash a like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. Now, in terms of last weekend, we saw a very much the same but very different Argentina side at the same time. We saw all the passion, we saw all the class, we saw all the aggression that we usually see within an Argentinian side. But we also saw discipline. We also saw a side that didn't give away a lot of penalties, that worked really hard, that were very intelligent, that never let the game sort of overwhelm them. And I think that Michael Cheika has very much sort of reined in a little bit of the loose ends in an Argentinian side, which has always had the potential to threaten to be one of the top sides in the world, but sometimes has struggled with being able to keep the discipline, being able to keep their structures when the chips are down. But last weekend, we very much saw a complete performance from the men from South America. In terms of the two teams, this is how the All Blacks will line up. No changes to the starting 15, which is almost quite controversial given the fact that this side could potentially have lost more games this year than they've actually won. They've won against South Africa and Ireland, but they lost 2 matches against Ireland, they lost a match against South Africa, and they lost a match against Argentina. So they've lost 4 and won just 2. If they were to lose this, that would be 5 losses and 2 wins. It would mean, I think it's like 2 wins in the last 9 matches for the All Blacks, which is pretty telling of our side that is really struggling. But no changes in the front in the starting 15. So Ethan de Groot, Samasoni Takawao, and Toro Lomax will pack down the front row. Sam Whitelock and Scott Barrett will continue their partnership, although there is a familiar face on the bench. You then got Shannon Frizzell, Sam Cane, and Artie Severe as the loose trio. Sam Cane still continuing with their captaincy. The halfback combination of Aaron Smith and Michi Mwanga is preferred. You then got Caleb Clark, David Havili, Rico Awani, Will Jordan, and Geordie Barrett competing the rest of the backline. A very interesting backline because a lot of people have been asking for not necessarily the personnel to change, but the positioning to change. You know, a lot of talk about Geordie Barrett moving into the centres where he might be more effective. Lots of people saying that Will Jordan should be playing at full back, that maybe it's time for Rico Awani to go back onto the wing. But they are continuing with what they believe in at the moment. Then off the bench, a couple of very experienced campaigners have returned in the likes of Dane Coles, Brodie Retallick, and Beauden Barrett, all sort of back into the fray. Brodie Retallick and Beauden Barrett have cut from injury. Dane Coles has been recalled and replaces Cody Taylor. So the reserve front row will be Dane Coles, George Boa, and Fletcher Newell, who will be winning his 3rd cap for the All Blacks. Then Brodie Retallick brings back immense experience, not necessarily playing his best rugby though at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see the type of form he is in. He has been injured, so he has been. We did rule him out of the trip to South Africa and the first test against Argentina, but he's back to full fitness and takes place on the bench. You then got Dalton Papali'i, who also comes onto the bench. Finley Christie, who's been very impressive off the bench. Beauden Barrett and Quinn Tupaia, who will be trying to sort of bring a little bit of a spark off the bench in the later stages of the game. And in terms of Argentina, quite a few changes from them. But I think it's still got sort of the core is still very similar, and a couple of more sort of rotational changes there, and sort of change to players who've been dropped and stuff like that. So in the front row, you've got Thomas Gallo, Julian Montoya, and Joel Asclavi. I was so impressed with Julian Montoya last week. I mean, absolute warrior of a player. That chop tackle of his is so incredibly effective. Him and Marcus Kramer just put on a defensive masterclass, really. Guido Petty comes into the starting lineup after coming off the bench last weekend, which sees Matthias Alamano drop down to the bench. Petty is joined by Thomas Lavanini, who I also thought was full of hard work. I think he must have carried the ball up at like 10, 11 times last week. Santiago Grandona comes into the starting lineup, and he joins Marcus Kramer and Pablo Matera to formulate a very good loose trio. I thought last weekend's loose trio performance from Argentina was very special. And Juan Martin Gonzalez, who drops down to the bench, I thought was very impressive. And I think that, as loose trios go, I don't think there are too many better than Argentina at the moment. Another change sees Thomas Kabeli come into the starting lineup. He partners Santiago Carreras, who has a fly half. Santiago Cordero comes into the starting lineup. So it's a pretty experienced, 2 very experienced campaigners on each wing. The 2 Matthias in Orlando and Moroni in the centres. Porfeli at 14, who was brilliant with his boot last weekend. almost won them the game single-handedly with the fact that he was so good off the tee. And then Joan Cruz Maria at full back. The reserve front row is Santiago Sochino, Michael Vivas, and Eduardo Bello. You then got Matias Alemano, Jean-Martin Gonzalez, who dropped down to the bench, as does Gonzalo Bertrano. You then got Benjamin Erdepaleta, who comes into the bench, as well as Lucio Cinti, who drops out of the starting 15, but keeps his place in the match day squad. Quite a few changes up from Argentina, and we'll be interested to see if that bolsters them or sort of maybe slows them down a bit. I think it's very important that you got to keep players fresh. At the end of the day, I think last weekend was very draining for Argentina because it was such a heroic performance. And so you want to make sure you keep people fresh and bring in players who are hungry to get going. But also, you don't want to mess with the winning formula too much because last weekend was very much a winning formula. And I think at the end of the day, it comes down to can they repeat that performance? And Argentina need to repeat that performance because they've always been a side who have had the potential and the skill and the class to be a world-class side, but struggled with consistency. Now, the question is, can Michael Cheika bring that consistency? Well, let's see this weekend. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Give me your score predictions as well. Please do smash a like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steven, and I'll chat to you soon.